grungy, groggy in my head.
Right, and we are live. Good opening message there, John.
Yeah.
Welcome to the grungy, groggy mess in John's head.
No, you don't want to know the grungy, groggy mess in my head.
Welcome to the grungy, groggy mess.
Once again,
I fucked up this bit, which is always happening as well. Evening ludicrous and evening warped.
Yes, evening, though I haven't yet got my act together to actually open the window. I will say hello in the chat in a moment.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
Get my act together.
And I was planning to talk about the European election, the current legislative figures, and, well, a little bit of soul searching what we might think will happen tomorrow and what the impact will be, if any. So,
sitting in a sleazy snack bar sucking sickly sausage rolls. Did I pass? It's a tongue twister.
yeah, and at the same time, I wouldn't be. I could do with some fries, to be honest.
Yeah, but did I pass? I said it correctly without tripping over it. I thought I did well.
Oh yeah, no, you did well.
Thank you.
I just took it literally. I could do with sitting in a snack bar with some fries. No, you did.
You've got to suck sickly sausage rolls. You can't have fries. There's no fries mentioned.
Yes. Well, consider me one of those, how do you call them? Deviants.
Well, yeah. We don't have to call you that. We just know.
True that.
Oh,
and I need
bear with me. I'll be back in a minute.
Oh, then I have to wait for John to return because unfortunately I have a huge craving for the toilet as well. Not so much a craving, I need to pee. Anyway, today we're going to talk about the European Parliament. Maybe that's why I need to pee. Who knows? And we're going to look at the way it's built up currently. And we're going to gamble how it will affect Europe in a moment. John, you back?
I am. Sorry, I've just realised I didn't have so much as a glass of water.
Well, in that case, I'll leave you with John, dear people, and I will go to the toilet.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Don't leave me until I know what I'm to talk about.
Well, we're talking about the European Parliament. But for the time being, we can just say hi there to people, and I'll be right back because I might get myself.
Okay, I think I'm going to read something for you guys because I can, if I can find it. Where are we? There we go. I wrote a little story. It's probably not very good. It's not polished, but I'm going to read it for you. Once upon a time, or counting our blessings. What follows is a plot for a dystopian novel, one set in a parallel universe. A social experiment is conducted. Its method is to convince the most privileged people in a society that they are, in fact, the most oppressed. The aim will be to turn them into such narcissists that no one and nothing else will matter. Everything will be viewed only from how it affects them. They will become so self-obsessed that they will happily murder their own children and attack viciously anyone who objects. On any issue, in any context, they will search for a way to show that they have it worse. Even when others go off and fight, die and suffer, their being left behind will be portrayed as worse. When anyone disagrees with them, the only explanation they will accept will be that it must come from a place of hatred. No fact or reason will be tolerated. So much so that the use of facts and reason themselves will be portrayed as acts of oppression. The group had been restricted in what they could do as a result of centuries of their being valued and protected. So perhaps there was initially some truth in their being confined, but if they were confined, it was in the most fabulous of gilded cages. Yet they sought to claim that this gilded cage was the darkest, deepest dungeon. And while in a cage, the lock was not a strong one, it was easily broken. Yet even once the lock was broken, and they were free, if they so wished, more often they preferred to huddle in the pretense of still being caged and lament how they were so harshly restrained. This group were able to wield such power and influence as to get the law of the land frequently changed to favour them explicitly. They received huge amounts of public funding. They and their ideology came to dominate the social and political discourse. And yet constantly they insist how they have no power, no influence, and no voice or platform. They abused a whole demographic of people, gaslighting those they abused, telling them and others that the abuse was actually in the reverse direction. After all, this group always had it worse. They developed their fantasy of powerlessness to such an extent that not only did they claim to do no wrong, but claimed that they were incapable of doing wrong. How their supposed lack of institutional power, despite all the laws and policies they passed, meant that they could do no wrong, even though there was no validity to that reasoning. They simply asserted that it must be so. They pushed their twin initiatives of abuse and simultaneous insistence of innocence to the point of seeking to abolish all legal consequences for their actions, removing the possibility of even nominally receiving the same punishment as others for the same offence, such as by abolishing their prisons, but not those of others, of rewriting laws so that for the same action only others could be considered guilty of committing an offence. For them, their actions were always justified, never their fault, and other garbage. As stated, the group selected was the most privileged in society, the most pampered, protected, and indulged, which is what provided the fertile soil for manipulation. For their very cosseted nature meant that they were, above all things, bored, while their lives led to an overweening sense of self-importance and thus entitlement. Once set in motion, this group became experts at examining all around them. They never factored themselves into the equation and thus never came to see the whole picture. So convinced were they of their lie about their inability to affect the world that they came to truly believe it. Every action achieved came as a complete surprise and was treated as a novelty, a first, no matter how often it had happened before. Even achievement by one of their group was touted as a triumph. I think I meant every, sorry. Yet they remained convinced of their inability to ever be allowed to achieve. The result of such divergence from reality included a massive amount of cognitive dissonance. To address that, they created ever more fantastical myths about what was happening. Invisible, mystical forces acted to constantly thwart this group, despite the ever-growing sequence of achievements. When people outside their group failed to agree with their assessment, they needed to find ways to justify why they were right and everyone else was wrong. And one concept they arrived at was how privilege, which drove the mystical forces, was invisible to those who possessed it. The irony being, of course, that they were entirely oblivious to their own, which was the closest they ever came to being right. Such was the privilege of these people, that no matter how egregious their claims to be, the real victims were, they were never called out on it, at least not by anyone that mattered. They could claim to be the real victims of war because they were left to suffer from the loss that was the death of those who went to fight and died to protect them. They could claim to be hated by the dominant group in society, yet be free to joke at the pain and suffering of those they claimed were dominant on TV shows without consequence, when none of the supposed dominant group would ever dare to do the reverse. And I realize that these people sound truly awful, So it is a good job that we have never seen anything like this. The end, by the way. Hello, Modwain.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my microphone was turned off. I didn't realize. That was a nice text, mate. Did you write it yourself?
Yeah, I had to ad lib a little bit because it needs polishing, and I had to change the tense of things, and it was longer than I remembered. I hadn't read it for a long, long time.
Oh, okay, well, it's nice. See, there's only one thing that I used to write poems. A long, long time ago, I used to write poems. Then again, I think we all did that when we were younger, I guess. And there's one poem
I never wrote poetry, and I never will. Ever. How dare you, sir?
Anyway,
we all do.
First off, hi to Paulo Costa. Amy, welcome to the stream. I assert that you are new, so I guess you are. I can't remember having seen you before. But even if at any point you will find that you may not agree with us or we may not agree with you,
yeah,
you're still always welcome to make your point. Even if we disagree, we will not deny people their right to make their point.
And abuse is welcome, especially if it's funny.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. You were afraid of people being offensive, calling you racist and whatnot. We don't really use those words here, not so much because we don't like those words, but more because we realize that these words, they have fuck all meaning anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not British, nor will I ever be. But I think it is about respect.
Yeah, it's a bit of an insult to Modwain to call him British.
Well, that's not even an insult. Listen, right? You guys had a huge fleet, and we took your admiral's ship.
Yeah, only because you snuck up while we were sleeping.
Oi! All is fair in love.
Hey, look, we did the same. We copied your technique at the Battle of the Nile and did the same to the French. So, you know, what goes around comes around.
Well, it didn't come around to us.
No, it doesn't matter, because when we did it to the French, we were one battle away from ruling the oceans for 100 years.
Well, ruling is such a big term.
It's even in our song, Rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves.
Yes, I know. I don't know why they took out that D that was so obviously in there. Rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Right? Wrong?
No.
I'm sorry. It's such an old joke, though.
In the Netherlands, perhaps. I've never heard it.
Well, that's why the D stands for Dutch. I never understood why people call us Dutch, because we're the Netherlands, we're not the Dutch.
No, Dutch is a corruption of Deutsch.
Yeah.
So you're really just Germans, second-class Germans.
Well, there are lots of Germans who will feel the same way. Let's be honest. Anyway, on average, we like to talk about stuff, and yeah, whatever happens, happens. And for fuck's sake, I don't know what happened, but I need to pee again. It's really annoying today. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
I'll get to the doctors, mate. It's a bad sign. No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah, they've got my blood works and my urine samples, and I will hear about it.
I think you need a finger at the backside, mate.
Or rather, how it should go. Anyway, I'll be right back.
Well, it's me again. Well, I finished my story and I won't embark on another one. Yes, that's why I said walked. It's accelerating rather alarmingly. Car races. Zandvoort. Is that how you pronounce it? Zandvoort or something like that. So, yes. So can I take it that there is mass apathy amongst the audience for tomorrow? Apart from Michael, who doesn't get a vote because he lives in Switzerland.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah. What reflection agrees with me?
Sorry, yeah. No,
your backside fingered. Back passage, should I say?
Well, they're now currently testing whether I might have diabetes.
I know, but the peeing thing is often linked to prostate cancer.
Yeah, that's also a very possibility. So that's been checked as well, but it all started when I started using blood pressure medication, and since then it's been going downhill. Anyway, so back to the topic at hand. Let's get started at it. I mean, we've been live for 15 minutes. So the European Union election is coming. Will it have any influence either way? Now, the rest of the world seems to know a lot about the English MEP who runs, MEPs, plural. Sargon, Nigel Farage, and Tommy Robinson make international news. So who of you can name me one German running for MEP?
Why would I care?
Right. One Frenchman then.
Why would I care?
Uh-huh.
Let's be honest. If it wasn't for Sargon, Tommy Robinson, and Dankula, I wouldn't know the names of any British person running for the European election. And I never have known the names of any Briton running for the European elections. And it's not so much that I haven't voted, it's just low-key isn't the word for it if you don't watch the news like it, and I don't watch the news.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad that Michael Keller can name a name, but in all fairness, we know that the European election, on average, doesn't play in Europe. I mean, people don't seem to understand or maybe they do. Maybe they do understand the significance of voting for MEPs, because an MEP is basically just someone who sits there and is allowed to say yes or no.
But when you say allowed, you mean told to say yes or no?
Well, actually, yes. You're correct. Because let's be honest, I'm going to share a screen somewhere. Come on, screen sharing. Yay! Share. Okay. So at this point in time, the current outgoing Parliament of Europe, and I'm looking at just the English way. The biggest English group is the European Conservatives and Reformist groups. And the Conservative Party obviously is part of it. And the Unionist Party and also Unionist Party also have one member. That's the biggest parliamentary group in the EU from Great Britain. The second one being the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Party. Now, obviously, that's mostly Labour. This is the same in the Netherlands, by the way. The Dutch PvdA, which is also the Labour Party, also is part of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats. Somehow, to me, that is scary because, let's be honest, socialism is the way to communism. Don't take my word for it. Ask Vladimir Lenin. Now, if we look at the complete...
Well, he wasn't Vladimir Lenin, he was Lenin. He was Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov.
Right. Okay, fair point. But if we look at the S&D, the Group of Progressive Alliance of Socialist and Democratic in the European Parliament, they're the second group. The first one being the Christian Democrats, which, funny enough, is also the party of Orban from Hungary. And they don't like what Orban is doing. So, as John so rightfully pointed out, he's doing something he wasn't allowed to do by the party. So imagine that. You could be the leader of a country and still you have fuck all to say in the European Parliament. And how dare you go against the mainstream ideology of the group you belong to? So I'm curious. Don't get me wrong. I like Sargon. I like Tommy. I like what UKIP did. I'm not even sure where UKIP sits in all this, actually. The Brexit Party.
It says down the bottom. So you got EFDD.
EFDD.
All the ex-UKIP members who've now all left UKIP are part of that.
Okay, and they are a massive 42 members at this point in time. Hopefully they will grow, don't get me wrong.
And if you open it again, that bit. Oops,
You mean this bit? Come on, this is easier.
Yeah. And if you actually look,
Brexit.
former UKIP are 18 of those, and there were 42. So that's nearly half of that block with UKIP.
No, actually, they're all former UKIP.
No, those 18 are all former UKIP.
Yeah.
But the whole block is 42. And so of the whole 42, nearly half were UKIP.
Yeah. Yeah, because now the Europe of Nations and Freedom group is only 3. And I think that's the same group the PVV is a member of. Let me see. Yeah. No, that's not good. Europe of Nations and Freedom group. Yeah, it's 4 members and all 4 of them are PVV. No, this is not doing what I want, for fuck's sake. ANF. Okay, we're going back to ANF. ANF, come on. It has in total 36 members. Why is it not doing that? Bloody hell. I so dislike the European Parliament thingy. Anyway, so they are the anti-European groups in the European Union, the Europe of Nations and Freedom group, is 2% of the total European Parliament members, MEP. So I'm really curious. What will happen, because, as I said, the biggest group obviously is the Christian Democrats, the European People's Party. I always have a problem when people start calling themselves the Democratic People Party for something, or something like that.
Yeah, because it sounds like North Korea.
Yeah, or East Germany, but they do it. They do it without, how do you call it?
Self-awareness.
Well, self-awareness, obviously, but it's not even sarcastic.
That's what I'm saying. They do it unironically, is the term.
Unironically, that's the word I was looking for. I mean, imagine that. The first party is the European People's Party.
What I want to know is why the far extreme over on the GUE-NGL isn't the red, but is in fact deeper red.
But yeah, that's a good one, actually. And I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure how they're extreme.
They're the Nordic green left you were talking about.
Yeah.
And people wonder, and people wonder why other people call the Nordic countries socialist.
Yeah. Well, Don't get me started on Sweden. Sweden is actually turning against its own history. You are no longer allowed to have runes in Sweden, because if you use runes, you are a neo-Nazi. Nearly everything old in that country has runes on it. It's beyond stupidity, really. Anyway, sidetrack, sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, my view is that if no matter, they're predicting a large anti-EU surge amongst the votes, okay, but as long as it's not half, it's going to make absolutely no difference, because the pro-EU people are still going to just bulldozer their way on, irrespective of what anyone else thinks or wants, because that's what they are. They're just
but let's imagine
an authoritarian elite.
Let's pray.
Best for us peasants. Don't we know our place? Why are we complaining?
Let's pray to the powers that be. Let's pray that 100% of the UK vote goes to Brexit and UKIP. Obviously, that's bullshit. But let's pretend for a second it is so. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's still only 10% of the total votes of the European. How do you call it? Come here, you stupid site. Even if all 71 votes go to Brexit, there's still a minority party.
Oh yeah. But I mean, they're predicting other parts of Europe will return some anti-EU group parties.
It's really weird. And well, if I look at this, as I said, outgoing parliament. So, I thought I screwed up. Sorry. Outgoing parliament. If I looked at the European People's Party, the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, and then the third group is the Conservatives and Reformist group. So I'm assuming they might be religious. The Alliance of Liberals and Democrats. And I'm like, shouldn't this be the biggest party? Don't you think most of them are liberals?
No.
Well, apparently not. That's true.
But again, the fundamental problem is if you're just going by the labels, you're not necessarily conveying useful information.
Well, true that. And then there are 20 non-attached members. And I'm like, okay, what use are they?
Well, they're probably the only sincere ones in there then. Because as I was saying, the problem with blocks is that they are essentially, well, I don't like them. It's the short and long of it.
No, but I mean, this is, I know this is me being an old fart and all that, but very often when we're talking about ideologies, I always say, even the ideologies you do appreciate, even the ideologies you align yourself with, you have to be able to stay critical towards it.
Then it's not an ideology. This is a question of whether it's an ideology or a political philosophy. A political philosophy, I agree. An ideology is an all-encompassing belief system with pre-baked answers, pre-baked positions, and a conformist attitude. That's what makes it an ideology.
Yeah, okay. Wait a sec. I'll come on. Oh, come on. Too many.
I mean, this was the argument I was having with Carlos on his stream, because I was explaining how people can be ideologues about the free market, because it's not the idea that makes someone an ideologue, it's how dogmatically they hold their views and basically where their view sits in the layer of their thinking. So it's like, if you like the free market because that produces the best results. It sits on top, okay? But if the free market is just an unspoken good and everything else is an unspoken bad, then it sits at the bottom. And so it depends where in the layers of your thinking you put an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And ideologues put their fundamental ideas right at the bottom. Thus, you have patriarchy or other oppressive groups, or you have Islam, or you used to have Christians were the same. Their ideologies, insofar as the identity and all the ideas associated with that identity, are the foundation for everything else. And you view things as good or bad in relation to whether someone is part of or not part of the members of that ideology.
Yeah.
Whereas you can believe in similar sorts of principles, but as a consequence of thinking, well, those are good goals, without actually being at the foundation of your thoughts, but merely as a mechanism to achieve certain outcomes.
One second. I have to respond to Amy for a second. Amy, I understand what you're saying, that you will try not to be influenced too much in appreciating our history. But in all fairness, and this is something that I painfully had to learn myself, what we think our history is and what history really is are not the same thing. In all fairness, in the last 20 years, I have learned more about history whilst doing self-research than I did during my education. And some of the things I've learned are pretty much against everything I learned during education. So it's double when we talk about knowing our history. But I agree with you that we should always know and appreciate our history and not try to banish it as Sweden is doing right now. I'm sorry, off topic, I know. But in a way, it's not so much off topic either, because if we look at the European Union, the European Union once was started as a trade bloc. And it was never supposed to be the United States of Europe.
Well, it was never admitted to be.
Fair enough.
Because this is the argument, I'll say, for the fact that Britain's never been a democracy, because you have to look at how the system came about and how it was allowed to develop. And you can look at the same with Europe. There's a parliament, we talk about the parliament. And yet when we look at the way it functions, with the appointed people being the ones with the actual power, the ones who create policy, and with Parliament basically being a rubber stamp, you actually see the intent in that structure. So that the idea that we're voting for people who actually get to determine what happens, well, it's like saying, oh, well, when you go to the shop, you can buy between two brands of washing powder. But that doesn't mean you get to control what those two washing powder brands are. Somebody else is determining what your choices are. You just get to choose from the choices available to you. And the power is in creating the different products. And it's the same with the European Union. The power comes from appointing people into the Commission. It's not voting for members of Parliament. Am I alone again? Oh, and it's dead air because I was talking and it's gone quiet, I think. I am always alone, ludicrous. By design.
I'm sorry, John. I'm back.
I didn't realise you'd gone. I shut up talking and then I'm like, but you're not saying anything.
Well, no, I was just for the longest time And then I realized I had to fucking pee again.
Yeah.
I should move my computer to the toilet, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's true, Michael. Too many voices. Bloody squatters.
And indeed, I have to respond to the chat as well. You're right, Michael. It wasn't the EU, it was the EEC. And
Yeah.
indeed, Paolo, the EEC wanted to move to United States of Europe in 73 with the Maastricht Treaty, but most people were against the Maastricht Treaty.
Yeah, but most people didn't get to actually keep their votes against the Maastricht Treaty, did they?
Nope.
And as I said, this is how you actually judge what's happening, because you look at how, there's a world of words and there's a world of action. And funnily enough, Helen Dale in a visit with Sargon in one of his live streams was saying this. He says, people in Westminster are people of words, and most people are people of action. So we the people of action judge things by what you do.
Mm-hmm.
The people, and this again comes back to your ideologues, and the whole thing about ideology is ideologues are all about what you say, your position, your opinions. It's towing the line, because that's how they judge whether someone's good or not, because you're allowed to sin and you can repent of your sins, whereas most people are like, no, it's what you do that matters.
Yeah, but that's the whole idea between, how do you call it, you have people that do and you have people that ponder.
Well, no, posture, not ponder, posture.
Okay. Well, we people that do.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So it's like the whole structure of the European Union is based on the you can have the distraction over there of the Parliament. You can vote and blah, but over here we're gonna actually control things.
Mm-hmm. It's how do you call it? It's amazing, funny, how people still think that this is something they have a say in.
Yeah, because it's the illusion.
Yeah,
it's how you control people. You give them the illusion of influence, and this is why I say Britain's never had a democracy, because it's been allowed to run to the extent to which it doesn't do anything people don't want. The real powers don't want.
That's why I don't understand the Brexit, to be honest. No, that's not true. I understand the Brexit. I don't understand the fact that they agreed to a Brexit referendum.
Because they thought they, as in the pro-Europe people, would win.
Mm-hmm.
But just remember, the military, not military, the industrial people thought they could control Hitler. Just because the people in charge think they can do something doesn't mean that they cannot do something. They do cock up, because guess what? They're only human too.
Makes you wonder, though. I mean, they're so. I think I said this pre-stream as well. They're so far out of touch with the reality of their country that, I mean, they think they have their finger on the pulse of the world, but they really don't know how populaces are thinking. This is the amazing thing about Brexit. It went completely. I mean, it surprised everyone, even though they pushed for. Well, I mean, there were people pushing for Brexit and there were people pushing for Remain. But it surprised everyone. It's the same with the election of Donald Trump in America. It surprised everyone. It's the same with the growth, the instant growth of Pim Fortuyn in the early 2000s in the Netherlands. He paid with his life for becoming the most popular politicians in the Netherlands. But there is something seriously wrong. And once anything out there threatens the political status quo, there is a serious risk combined into that. And this is, funny enough, why I have so much problem. And I know John is AFK now. I'm sorry. But this is why I have a problem with so many people in the UK being taught that it's okay to throw eggs or milkshake at politicians you disagree with. Because it's only a matter of time before this too turns violent. We've seen it so many times before. Hell, even in the UK, we've not seen it too long ago. What's the name of that English politician that was stabbed? What's her name?
Sarah Cox.
Sarah Cox, indeed. But they're okay with it, apparently. Well, it was what happened to her. But
it's very hard to tell what is really going on, because you can never tell what is a warning to others, if you know what I mean.
I don't understand how it's not a warning to others.
No, what I'm saying is
terrible.
Is, you know, it's like there are powerful forces who can do things, and you will never know what's you'll never know what's really going on underneath.
Oh, I'm willing to believe that, but the fact that it's happening at all.
The fact it's happening at all.
Yeah, isn't that the main issue? I'm not even interested in the why.
But it's all about the why.
No, it's not. That's the worst part.
It is.
No, it isn't. Let me try to explain this. If it is about the why, then that implies that there's a justifiable reason.
No.
Yeah, it does.
No, because to say justifiable to whom?
Ah, the ones that did it.
Yeah. And if you do something, then it's always justifiable to you that you do it. Just like all the Islamic suicide bombers, they are justified in their mind for doing it. Therefore, you can't say it's as if there's a justifiable reason. Well, to them there is.
As soon as we start talking about how there is a justifiable reason, then we are normalizing it.
No, you're making a fundamental classification mistake, because to say that is to assume that everybody has the same morality and the same worldview. Mm-hmm. And that's the fundamental problem. We don't. So what is justifiable isn't, there's no such thing as justifiable to everybody. There's only justifiable from a particular point of view. And so when you it's like the Antifa people think it's justified to go and be violent, because from their point of view it is justified. From our point of view, it's not justified.
John, you're missing the point. The fact that a criminal thinks his actions are justified is one problem. It becomes a completely different problem when a society or a media is claiming something is justified.
Yeah, but they are only a section of that society, only a particular interest group, and must not be conflated with everybody.
But the bigger that the bigger that group becomes, the bigger the problem becomes.
Yeah, maybe, but we can see that with the whole media narrative over the last decade. In so many spheres.
And therein lies your problem. Therefore, I'm saying I don't care so much about the why. The fact that it happens in itself is a problem. And that problem itself is bigger than whatever why can clear up.
No, but the why is that group moving to allow things that, say, in earlier ages would never have been acceptable. What are the social forces that are changing large groups of people to see things in a fundamentally new and different way? You know, why is it okay to have courses across the United States about male privilege or white privilege, and where somebody will get up and literally get some of their students purely on the basis of innate characteristics to self-flagellate and admit their guilt.
Well,
and you have to understand why it's happening. You can see that it's happening, but you have to understand why. What is motivating this social shift?
The why is only interested in certain situations, not nearly all. The why is interested to understand or even classify, but it's of no value to a society to know the why.
But there isn't such a thing as a society. This is what I keep trying to say to you. There are only
there is.
different aspects of a society.
There are plenty of different aspects of a society. On this, I agree with you. But there is one society.
No.
There are, because
there's a polity, but it's not a society.
Okay, fair enough. But if you have a group of people, and that group of people becomes large enough that's okay with certain behavior, and that group of people influences the rest of their direct environment or society, if you wish, then what they are pushing becomes normalized.
Or it creates a tension which will lead to a breakdown in civil relations.
Eventually that will happen too, because more and more people will start recognizing, hey, listen, what's going on here? This is bullshit. We're not going to allow this to happen for much longer. This is why in the UK, the Brexit movement has started. This is why in America, Donald Trump came in at the right time. I'm not even saying Donald Trump happened. I mean, it's bullshit. Had it been anyone else, had what was his name? Ron Paul, the old one? Had he run against Hillary Clinton, I think he would have won as well. Not as an independent, obviously, but because at a certain point in time, societies reach a point of, I wouldn't want to call it no return, cracking. No, not Ross Perot. And I don't think Trump is a deceiver either, Amy Brooke. But at a certain point in time, a society reach a point of no return. Let's call it no return. And they're going to be putting all their chips, as you will, on one person to stop the railroading of a society. And if we look in America, Hillary Clinton was very set for war. If we look in Europe, Europe is very globalistic. I mean, the powers that be were so incredibly happy when Macron won. I mean, I can still remember the news lines when he won. It was as if France broke the populists. I never understood stuff like that, though. But oh no, because Macron won, and therefore, you see, right-wing populism is on the run. Had they waited only half a year, and then all of a sudden that headline, well, Macron won, but
yeah, but here's the problem. Here's the problem with the system. If you want to control the political institutions, you only have to peak at the election.
Yeah,
because it was always there was always a trend in British politics. A party would rise to power, and then their popularity would slump while they did all the dirty work in the first couple of years, and then they would change their policies to essentially soften up the electorate for the next couple of years. Then they'd have an election and they'd get back in again because the dirty work was done in the first 2 years and people forgot about that, and they just remembered the buttering up they got. And so you had this sort of like U-shape for the popularity of the government, and yet they would often, I mean, it varied, but often, especially the Conservatives, would get elected 2, 3, 4 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always the same. They just followed the same system. Do the dirty work at the first 2 years, and then ease it back the second 2 years.
Yeah. Well,
because you only have to be popular for the election.
yeah, that's true.
And I mean, in '92, Labour overplayed their hand, and it looked like Labour were going to smash the Conservatives, and they went into the election looking like they'd win, and then but they heavily lost.
Yeah,
because it literally was like a few days. Only those few days did the Conservatives have to be more popular than Labour. that was it. Just those few days was all the Conservatives needed.
but it's and at the same time, this is why I'm so amazed. Maybe the wrong word. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't in the Trump camp either, but the guy won fair and square, and I have to be amazed that in everything he's doing, and there are plenty of things I disagree with him about, but he has been very predictable. And this is something that you don't see a lot in politics. On average, politicians are great at keeping you guessing. And I'm not sure if Trump's job is to prepare America for a war. At the same time, I think
but that's weird because of the two alternatives, he's by far the least hawkish.
yes, indeed. But at the same time, I do think that we in the Western world have to worry about it. I think worry is the best word. I'm not hoping for it. I'm not saying we should look for it, but we should be aware of it. Because let's look at Europe. Sweden destroys its own history, and I mean, not too long ago they destroyed a lot of finds, archaeological finds from the Iron Age, and now they are making runes illegal. When Angela Merkel won in Germany, she actually berated political party members that flew the German flag. Can you imagine? You're winning a German election, but you're not allowed to fly the German flag because you're not allowed to be proud for your own country.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. It's something, you know, something's going on, and you get the hints of it, but they're never going to come out and say what they're doing.
But this is happening in most countries. I mean, look at Italy. I mean, they're absolutely aghast by the fact that the right and the left, the extremes on both, well, not extremes, but you know what I mean, on both sides won and are actually working together. Why? Because they're both in favor of their country. So, and this is something that John has said a lot, so I'm going to paraphrase, it's not about right or left. And Italy proves that's the case. But Europe hates Italy now because Italy doesn't care about Europe. Well, not about the European Union. Am I saying something wrong there?
Sorry?
Well, I was talking about how in Italy...
Well, I don't really know the Italian situation, so I'm not really in a place to comment.
Yeah, I think it was Salvini and I forgot the other one's name. What was it? 4-star party, 5-star party, and he's left, and Salvini is right, and they're working together. Why? Because of Italy. That's why, not because of Europe. And in France, oh, Macron, yeah, it was so great. Oh, look, he's standing together with the immigrants that live in France. Yeah, too bad that he has enough time for the French people that live in France, though.
Yeah, well, look on the bright side. When all those immigrants take chunks of France and secede, he'll have an easier job of it because there'll be a lot less France to govern.
Well, that is true. Let me see if I can find well, I wanted to say funny image, but oh, come on. I'm really good at the web. Too many windows. An old friend of mine used to fly the American flag on 4th and 5th of May and complaining about it. What's the 5th of May? Oh, wait a second, because of Independence Day in the Netherlands, yeah. Weird that is. Let me see if I can find what I wanted to show you. Oh, fucking hell. Feeling like such an old man.
No, that's true, Paolo. But that's what all the again, it's the question of what is an ideology. Ideologies have their elites, its leaders,
Yeah.
and the leaders always see themselves as the aristocrats.
Yeah.
They might term themselves that, but that's how they act. And whether it's the professional politicians or the leaders of various political movements or religious movements, the leaders, see themselves as better. And that's what the aristocrats used to do. They literally saw themselves as better. They literally granted themselves privileges under the law.
Yep.
So what we have, but what we have now, and why I say that the left isn't left, is that the left is now, it started trying to fight that and give everyone rights, and now it's gone past everyone having rights into setting themselves up as the new aristocracy.
Well, this is what I've always said about Marxism. It's all about creating a new aristocracy. It's about creating a new upper class. Marxism wasn't about the people. It never was. Just like socialism and communism never was about the people. It's about
that's why I have decided that socialism and communism are not left-wing, because they are actually contrary to the stated intention.
Well, that's a way of looking at it. I can't completely disagree with that.
Well, I mean, going back to the initial fight against, because conservatism, when conservatism was first defined by Edmund Burke, it was the preservation of the aristocratic order, which was inherently inequitable. It was ruled by the wealthy and those with, the moneyed, the etc. of everyone else.
Oh, sorry guys, I need to be AFK again.
And the left was to say no, everyone should be able to determine their own life and participate if and as they are able, which was a fight for equality. We achieved equality, and then the left shot straight past it and said, oh no, well actually we don't want equality. We still claim we do, but we don't want equality. We want to give these groups special privileges. We don't like discrimination unless it's discrimination against those people. And in British law, you have discrimination codified into it based on race, based on sex, over and over again. And these policies are not fought against by the left. They are proposed and then reinforced by the left. Therefore, the left is no longer left. They are merely the right in disguise.
I'm back, sorry.
Yes, exactly, Paolo. The left was capitalist. The left was for the individual to be able to participate freely in economic activity.
So that makes you wonder then why people considered Marx to be left.
Because basically what he did is he fundamentally subverted. He started off saying, we want to achieve the goals of the left, and then created such a confabulation to then say, oh, so we need everything to be owned by the state, well, which is utter insanity. There's nothing less free than everything being owned by the state.
I'm going to share something, by the way, something I wanted to show people. Now, we've seen many images like this, right?
Yeah.
Paris and Poland, we've seen many. The one thing that makes this one interesting is that it's been tweeted by Imam Tawhidi. He's a Muslim living in Australia. And I like him. Not so much that he's Muslim, I don't care about that, but as a man, he makes good sense. Doesn't mean he's above criticism, by the way. But images like these are what should be going around. This is what people should be aware of. And it makes me wonder why you're not being allowed to be aware of this.
When you say you're not allowed to be aware of it, I'm aware of it, you're aware of it, he's aware of it.
True that. But how many people look at the newspapers, look at social media. I'm going to stop sharing it, by the way. Hoppa. Look at these things. They will do everything they can to remove imagery like this.
Yeah, of course. Because there's an agenda.
And therein lies our problem. And if we look at the European Union, I'm going to go back to the thingy of the European Union and share that one. If we look at the European Union, they don't address any of this.
No.
And
because that's just collateral damage.
Well, I don't.
Why do you always sound puzzled by the blatantly obvious?
I'm not so sure if it's blatantly obvious. I think
that it's just collateral damage. That they don't care, that they think the ends justify the means.
Smirkers, you mean to hear? Yeah, one second. Oh, bloody hell. I'm going to stop sharing for a second.
Sorry, he's a shill. Who's a shill?
I think Amy means Imam Tawhidi being a shill.
Everyone has their position, and if they're honest about their position, and as far as I can tell, he is, then you accept what he says from the framework of his position, and he makes no bones about being a Muslim imam who supports Islam, but who thinks that the only way for Muslims to be safe is to live under the Christian democratic type society, not a theocratic one. And he's someone who has lived in theocratic countries. He was born in Iraq, educated in Iran, so he knows what those societies are like. And he said, no, I like living in Australia because I am free to just do my thing without the state getting involved.
Amy, I have to admit, I don't think he's a shill.
He's a Muslim imam.
I don't smoke, by the way.
He is a Muslim imam.
He is a Muslim imam. He is both Sunni and Shia trained, Amy. I have to admit, I know this because I came, well, not personally in contact, but I saw him the first time on Australian television, where he argued with a doctor about the problems of Islam. And I was surprised because when they were talking, it was I can't remember the show. I have to look it up. It's one of my older videos. You can always check them out as well. I was amazed by the fact that there was an imam who was actually talking sense, whereas a doctor was propagating the delusional nonsense of Islam. Now, I'm going to say most things are delusional, but faith is a personal thing. He is, whether you like it or not, he is a Muslim imam. And the worst part is, he is probably by far the most visual at this point in time. But throughout history, we have had more visual imams. The problem with him being an imam is that he's still an imam, and this I agree with Paulo. But he is in actual danger because he goes against the doctrine pushed by the majority, and that means he's an apostate. That means that other Muslims are allowed to kill him, not according to the Western world, but according.
Yeah, but there is this whole issue with different Islamic sects anyway, that they don't see each other as proper Muslims and therefore are entitled to kill them.
Anyway, Smirkus, welcome, mate.
Yo.
Are you ready to vote tomorrow?
Oh shit, we need to vote tomorrow?
No, but you can if you want to.
You can if you want to. Probably useless anyway, but...
I don't even know where the fuck I do that in my town, man. Jesus. I probably threw away the card that came in the mail because I was like, yeah, who fucking votes for this shit anyway? It's not like it's gonna make a change. Like, they're suddenly not gonna do politics and just focus on economics. So fuck
Well,
it.
that would be interesting.
They should have never bothered with politics to begin with.
I can't really say I disagree. But the difficulty is that you can't have a society without politics.
Yeah, well, let them regulate the fucking economical part of Europe, and we just do what we do, you know?
Well, that was what the EEC was. That was what the EEC was. And this is why I'm not so happy about the fact that we went from EEC to EU.
Because now we got all this bullshit.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because there was someone on the radio, Dutch radio, I think a week ago, maybe, was like, well, but everything we have in Europe, we have because of the EU. And I'm like, no, that's not true. The EU is still coasting along based on what the EEC used to do. I can't think of one thing that the EU brought that is actually a benefit to the European people.
I have no idea. I don't really follow politics that much.
Well, indeed,
Or know the history of it.
Indeed, Paulo, you don't have to take an interest into politics. Politics is surely interested in you.
We're all just a little number, right?
Yeah. And therein lies the difficulty of, well, tomorrow.
It's like, hey, your customer, fucking 19,437,000,000. Instead of, hey, there's Smirkus.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, they don't care about any of us.
Well, of course not.
But then again, the common, just the regular Joes and Janes are not really interested in being in office. Usually.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is
It's always like, you hear that in Americans, like, for the people, by the people, whatever. Really, in this day and age.
Well, I have to respond to what Paolo said. I don't need to exchange money when I travel abroad. That's what tourists say the EU is good for. And let's be honest, even that isn't true. Our money now is worth less than it was before the European Union came out with the euro. Now, the monetary value has gone down overall in the world, but not so much as it has in the European Union. Let's be honest, I pay for my health insurance. I pay now more euro in health insurance than I used to pay in guilders.
Fucking 170 euros or something for me.
Yeah, I'm paying 340, but then again, it's not just for me, both for my wife and my kid. But when I used to pay in guilders, I would have paid 200 and maybe 240 guilders.
Well,
Which is less than half of what I'm paying now.
maybe a little more. inflation and all.
Well, if I'm going back 12 years, how long do we have the euro now? 2 long, anyway. So yeah, there is inflation, but the inflation has been more than 100%.
That's true.
So there is.
It's like at first the euro was like the guilder, but like half of it, and then soon it caught up, and then it became double.
And yeah, indeed, and it's indeed Paulo. I can still remember that at first they was like, okay, you know what? €1 is about 2 guilder, 2 guilder 20, but that makes it easy. €1. So if the price was 2 guilders, or 2, then the price is now €2. Sorry, €1. But wait a second, a euro is €2, 2 guilders 20. So that's 20%. Sorry, 10%. That's already gone. And then they raised prices to offset the costs. The prices have gone up in every European country because of the coming of the euro, where in fact it was supposed to be cheaper.
Sure.
So yeah, it happened with everything, Paolo. Not just coffee, gasoline, and milk. But you're not mention it. You're not allowed to say it. It's not true. How dare you not see the good things that the European Union has brought to the people of Europe? I'm always
Higher taxes, more bureaucracy.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm always this is something back in the days when I started making videos because I'm pretty much against feminism. I always said, okay, give me one example where feminism actually benefited humanity. Humanity, both men and women, not just women. And I've yet to hear a single example. But at the same time, give me one example where the European Union actually benefited the people of Europe.
And the only cool thing was if you were a traveler, because then you'd only need one fucking ID card.
Well,
that's not true. You always only needed one ID card.
okay, after the Roman Empire, has there been an empire that actually was of benefit?
I'm sorry, John, can you rephrase?
After the Roman Empire, after the fall of the Roman Empire, can anyone name an empire that has been of benefit?
Yeah. In all fairness, what was it called? The Merovingian Empire? Before it turned into 3, which was actually rather good because it established the Germanic hegemony of Europe. It did so in France, but yeah, that's okay. And out of that came the Frankish, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Teutonic Empire. Teutonic? I don't know. I think it's Teutonic. So it's not that the Roman Empire was a loss. The British Empire did a lot of good as well. Fair is fair.
Yeah, I'm not saying it didn't have positive benefits, but it wasn't. The empire being the empire it wasn't a good thing. You know, the Roman Empire, was because it was so egalitarian. Once a state joined the Roman Empire and the people became Roman citizens, everywhere was equal to everywhere else. It's a very egalitarian empire.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was supposed to be.
No, but you know what I mean, conceptually.
Yeah.
Other empires didn't really do that.
No, that's true. Well, actually, the Portuguese did.
Okay, so you've got the Portuguese Empire.
Yeah. They also allowed people to become citizens. I'm pretty sure of it. Oh, sorry that Carlos isn't here right now. Amy, I'm sorry, my dear. There has never been anything positive coming from feminism. Not even first wave feminism. They claim all sorts of things, but Feminism never brought anything good to people. And before you forget, feminism didn't give women the vote. They claim they gave women the vote. They didn't. The first modern country in Europe where women had the right to vote was Finland. And Finland was at the time a Grand Duchy. We're talking about the turn of the 20th century. It was a Grand Duchy, and there were a grand total of 0 feminists in the country. It was the first country that gave both men and women the right to vote.
Yeah.
Feminism itself has always been a separatist movement, a female entitlement, a female empowerment movement.
Supremacist.
Well, supremacist, yeah, maybe supremacist is a better word.
Well, unfortunately, the best way to judge what feminism wants is to read the statement of sentiments from the Seneca Falls Conference of 1848, which was held at Seneca Falls in the United States. And equality was never in there. And the irony is that until the 20th century, feminists didn't want equality for women. They only wanted equality for a certain class of propertied, moneyed, educated women.
Yeah.
So, there was a famous American feminist, black feminist, who had to come to England to engage British feminists to resist the racism of the American feminists. And this is a true historic incident.
Yeah.
And they unfortunately, the feminism, as far as we know, is nothing but a pack of deceit, because they say things like, oh, women didn't have the vote. That's not true. Women always had the vote. You can find records of women voting. Yes, it's true that it was a property holder, and they say, oh, but women could have property. Yes, they could. Women had property. Women couldn't work. Not true. Women worked. But the reason why certain laws were the way they were is because all the financial and legal obligations were on the man. All of them. There was a man called Wicks who went to prison because his wife didn't pay her taxes that he had no right to even know the amount of.
Yeah.
So it's no good saying, oh, but women didn't have this, that, and the other. Yes, and men, for their extra legal rights, also were the only ones who were conscripted to fight for war. They were the ones who had full financial responsibility for the family, even when even when the woman had a greater income, the man was fully responsible for maintaining the woman's household. That was the law. And so what feminists have done is they've depicted half of it and say, oh, but the women didn't have these rights. Yes, because they didn't have the responsibilities. And what they do is they got the rights, but they never relinquished the responsibilities. And what happened in recent decades, when women started earning more than men, they start crying to the heavens when a woman gets alimony awarded against her. How terrible, how unfair it is. No, that's equality.
But the funny
or even very recently, when there was legislature that was gonna force women into the draft as well.
Yeah.
Well, they were talking about that not too long ago in America, but obviously that got voted down.
Yeah.
Women don't want that. Well, feminists don't want that. Pretty sure women don't want that either, to be honest. But though there are women who want to serve.
And that's fine if they can meet the standards.
If they can meet the standards. But that's
like the actual standards, not this watered down bullshit.
But that's the same thing. If we're looking at firefighters, I think it was in New York. There were females that wanted to be firefighters, and the firefighters always had to have certain standards. And there were female firefighters that met those standards. And then because some snowflake women wanted to be firefighters too, they downgraded those standards. Which looked bad on all women who were already in the force because they had the test on the old standard. So they had every bit of a right to be a firefighter Next to every man that was a firefighter.
Same
But
with
the new
military.
firefighters, same with the military. The new ones are crap.
It's like that we have these standards for a reason, you know. If you can't meet them, you're a hazard to others more than help.
I mean, feminists talk about the number of women in power and the number of CEOs, people like that. Do you know who the men's right movement admire? The people who go in sewers, bin workers, people who keep the power and electricity working.
Yeah.
Men's rights movements are in awe of the people who do the dirty, unsung work of society, whereas feminism is all about the elites. I will leave you to judge yourself which is a better view of who's good in society.
Well, as I said, and I'll say it again, nothing good ever came from feminism. Ever. I'm willing to hear an exception. I'm willing to be proven wrong. No one has ever been able to do that. Nor, in all fairness, most doesn't even try because it's like, oh, well, yeah, well, you're against us, therefore it's no use to talk to you. Okay. Thanks for proving my point.
You work in the dirt.
I mean, we could have a discussion about where our differences are, but no.
No. Well, obviously, I must be an ist and an oob for holding the points that I hold.
Well, just remember, I'm a toxic, evil white male, so I own my shit.
Yeah, well, I'm not even toxic, but...
Well, I added the toxic as an adjustment after all these things saying that basic masculinity, of which I'm not particularly well endowed, but hey, I've got the body parts, I will own the label.
Mhm.
Amy Brooke, I'm sorry to hear that you were attacked by MGTOW guys, but then again, not all MGTOWs are great people either, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the trouble is you get wankers in any part of society.
Yeah.
But you know...
I'm not MGTOW, by the way, so don't get me wrong on that one. But there are good ones out there that actually talk to you. And then there are ideologues that are ideologues, and therefore that's the problem.
I think the problem is yeah, you know, you'll get groups of men who talk shit about women, just as there are and have always been or long been groups of women who talk shit about all men, and both are as unreasonable as the other. But the question is the funny thing with MGTOW is by definition they're not a group because they go their own way, and if they are in a group, they aren't going their own way.
Mhm.
But the men's rights movement are not huge fans.
I don't know. I remember white YouTuber having a stream with a couple MGTOWers, and
Yeah.
one of them was very calm and collected and explained all the shit that he went through and why he is how he is now and stuff. And I thought it was brilliant, and then you had some fucking dickhead.
Yeah, I've been with white YouTuber to a few MGTOW meetings, so to speak, as well. But most of them there were just kids running along. But there were one or two that were actually making sense. They were actually talking and listening.
And one of the ape guys or something,
Yeah.
he actually explained everything very, I don't know, in a nice way, where I could understand where he was coming from.
Yeah. But that's the thing. And this is something I sometimes catch myself doing wrong. Not all women are feminists. Not all feminists are women. Not all men are MGTOW. Not all MGTOW are men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, technically, you could say I'm MGTOW now that I'm a widow.
Yep.
No intention of hooking up again.
So you're an incel.
No, I'm not incel.
Well,
No,
you're
incel. There's nothing voluntary about it, mate.
No, that's what I said. Involuntary.
No, there's nothing involuntary about it. It's only involuntary if it's against your will.
Mm-hmm.
That's what involuntary means.
Okay, well, okay, fair point.
Well, I mean, it's in the definition.
Well,
People who want relationships but can't and possibly never had one. I was married for 22 years.
true that.
I'm only not married because my wife passed away.
Yeah.
You know, I would be happily married still were that not the case.
Yeah. No, that,
Having become single, I will remain single. And therefore, in a way, I am MGTOW. But I am not MGTOW ideologically. I am MGTOW emotionally because no one could replace my late wife.
Mhm.
And therefore, it would be unfair on anyone else to do that to them.
I'm going to respond to Amy Brooke. I remember being a young, attractive woman in the early 2000s, wanting to have a boyfriend and being expected to be a slut. It's society to blame, not women. You know what? In a way, I agree with you. It is our society that's to blame.
But who forms the views of society?
Why do we have this society? Trust me, men will love to make out with a woman. They really do. Don't get me wrong. Just like women like to make out with men. But if you want to be partner material, you have to be partner material. If you're a slut, you're not partner material. The only ones that come for you are the ones you don't want to have around you anyway.
And can I just say, a slut can be of either sex.
True that. And people talk about
it might be couple time fun variety, but not
but
life partner.
back in the days when I used to go out, I didn't have the name of sleeping around because, well, I didn't, not really. But at a certain point in time, I decided, okay, you know what? No more one night stands.
Mhm.
And not that I didn't have the option, but I simply didn't have the gusto, the feeling, whatever you want to call it.
You were tired of it.
I was tired of the one night stands in principle.
Yeah, well, that tends to happen to people as they mature, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. On average, women are the gatekeepers to relations. Don't get me wrong, but women decide whether a relation will or will not happen. This is why, on average, women used to be more mature than men when it comes to this. And feminism hasn't empowered men to sleep and not commit. Actually, feminism has empowered women to sleep around and not commit. It's not men that are.
No, it's not. Feminism hasn't empowered men to sleep and not commit.
No,
Nonsense.
Feminism has
You were
empowered.
built for that shit.
Well, a man can sleep around all he wants. It doesn't really matter much. But for a society, it's a bad thing. Women sleeping around is even worse.
I think there's a fundamental problem. Okay, do you remember there was a dating site? They did a study of attractiveness of the other sex, and men rated women according to a regular distribution.
Yeah.
Whereas women rated 80% of men as below average. Now, here's the problem. Women tend to be hypergamous and tend to only chase the top 20% of men, however you judge that. And so to women, it looks like men get to choose because there's more women chasing a smaller number of men. However, for most men, they chase women who aren't interested. And so it's women who get to choose. So both sexes think it's the other sex who have it easy and get to choose. Whereas in fact, it's just due to this inequitable numbers of women only collectively chasing a smaller number of the men and essentially ignoring the rest of them. Whereas
Often hear that as women tend to marry up and men tend to marry down.
yeah, and most men, the 80%, look at it and go, what are these women talking about? Because it's not their version of reality. And most women will listen to the 80% of men and go, what are they talking about?
But and hypergamy is a serious issue.
What's hypergamy? What is that?
Hypergamy basically is that women want the best mate to provide for them.
Oh, okay.
Equal or higher social status.
Yes. Which is understandable from an evolutionary point of view. But yeah, we've evolved past that. So it is somewhat of a problem.
No, our societies have moved past that, but we haven't evolved past that. That's the point.
Amy, what is it that is not true about how women are the gatekeepers when it comes to relation and sex? Because on average, they very much are.
Well, no, how I've heard it put is this: women are the gatekeepers of sex, men are the gatekeepers of relationships.
The fuck?
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
But again, it's to do with this inequitable distribution.
Because if a man wants a serious relationship with a woman, and the woman doesn't want it, it's not happening.
Yeah, no, exactly. And this is my whole point. Because a majority of women chase a minority of men,
Mm-hmm.
the men get to choose who has the relationship.
Yes.
Because it's not all men, because 80% of men aren't in the equation.
Yeah. And I believe that you had a relationship with men that don't want to commit but are happy to live with me. But then you have to look at what commitment means for a man to what commitment means for a woman. If a man commits to a...
Or your man and you as a woman.
Yeah, well, this is true in England and in Europe as well. If you look at what it means for a man to commit to a woman, for example, get married, that also means that for the rest of his life, he is indebted to that woman. Even if after 5 years they decide to no longer be together.
Unless you don't have a bitch as a girlfriend.
So there is a danger in our current society, in our current marriage system, so to speak, that is very detrimental to men. And this is why movements like MGTOW are growing. And this is not good for our society,
Well,
but it is a result of feminism.
No, the data is in not having a father figure is very bad for both boys and girls.
Yeah.
It leads to much worse life outcomes.
Yes.
Now, whether this is solely the result of feminism, I don't agree, because Lyndon Johnson, I can't find the name of it. He enacted a policy whereby essentially, if there was a man in the house, then people weren't entitled to the benefits that they were entitled to if the woman lived with the children on her own, which actually then precipitated a massive increase in fatherlessness amongst children.
Mm-hmm.
Which society has then had a massive amnesia about and decided to blame on deadbeat dads, whereas in fact it was actually the welfare policy which created this situation.
Well, it also had a strong...
I mean, I'm not saying there wasn't an influence of feminism. I just hate oversimplistic.
No, that's right. That's
facts like we can point to this piece of legislation and we can point to the effects of what it did, because prior to that, in the United States, Black Americans had a lower single parent rate than white people, but after that, Black people had a much higher single parent rate than white people, and it's all traceable to this particular act.
Mhm.
in
And I
marriage.
will respond to Amy for a second.
Hmm?
I'm talking about men I lived with in the late 1990s when we were both working and I had better wages. MGTOW is too simplistic misogyny. And I'm sorry, I disagree with you. Because even as a woman, you can out-earn your husband. If you get divorced for whatever reason, they are most likely still going to be financially indebted to you, even though you out-earn them. Now
Alimony
there
and
have
shit.
been a few cases in the Western world where women are forced to pay an allowance to men after divorce, but those are still very few. So on average, marrying is a risk for the man, and this is how MGTOW became a thing.
Well, the funny thing is that in the upper echelons of society, the eligible bachelor was a long-standing what's the word?
Trope.
Trope. That's the one. Yes.
Anyway, I need to go AFK a sec again. I'm sorry, guys.
But I think the problem is to talk to Amy, talk about MGTOW being oversimplistic misogyny, is that we hear all the time about misogyny, but there is so much misandry in society. And it is so unchecked, it is so pervasive, and has been so, and increasingly so, for so long. And then the minute men turn around and say, we don't like this, we want to stand up for ourselves, they get called misogynistic. When literally they're going their own way. All they're doing is what the feminists said they wanted to do in the 1970s.
Shit.
Well, you know, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bike. And so the MGTOW are saying, yeah, fine, we agree. Except for it's men who don't need a woman. And then all of a sudden that's a problem. And the only solution is to stop seeing men and women as two tribes who are at war with each other, and just see them as people who are complex and flawed, and you know, bikes don't need no fish. They do if they're thrown in the canal. As many were.
I totally agree with that. It's like, let's ignore all the bullshit and just see we're all humans.
See, I agree, Amy, that women are on a biological time clock. And the lie of the last 40 years has been to tell young women as they started to, they got to higher education and then wanted to go for a career. Oh, there's no need to worry about that. You can have it all. There's plenty of time. Except, is there? From a health outcome, my understanding is that you're better off as a woman having your children in your early 20s. That's a biological reality, not a social position.
Isn't it like the sooner the better?
Well, around your 20th, I still know that my wife, she's happy that we have a son, don't get me wrong, but she often says that this should have happened several years earlier.
Well, I mean, it's like Alicia, right? So most of us know Alicia.
Yeah.
She had her children, then did a higher education.
Nope.
Now, that's unusual, but she thinks that was a good way of doing it. Now, obviously, you'd have to ask her as to whether, that's her life and her opinion. But I'm just saying is that it is possible to do things in a different order if you are willing to. It just isn't made easy because we have this train of you do all your education, and having done having taken a break in my education, then gone back to it in my mid-20s, I am not convinced that going straight from school into higher education is the best solution for a large number of people. I think going out into the real world, earning a living.
It also helps if you have a good support base if you're going to do that, though.
Of course not, Amy.
No,
It's
I
not
want to
women.
blame women alone, by the way,
It's not
Amy.
women. Most women are not a problem. It's
No.
an ideology that is the problem, not the sex of the people.
That's why I don't understand that people always seem to think that all women must be feminists, when we can clearly see and recognize that most women are not.
Well,
So the problem is not women. The problem is our society. Yeah, sure, the laws, definitely, but not women. Nor are men the problem.
no, it's just there are people who are problems and there are people who aren't problems, and
People who suddenly become a problem.
Well, in all fairness, Amy, I don't hate feminists, but I've yet to meet a good one.
no, I mean, good is a very loaded term.
Christina Hoff Summer still calls herself a feminist, so okay.
I mean, I haven't heard anything Camille Pally has ever said that I disagree with.
Yeah, but she doesn't call herself a
She
feminist.
does call herself a feminist.
No, she doesn't.
Yes, she does.
She called herself a feminist. She recognized that she is no longer part of feminism.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing. Because that's like, I consider myself on the left, but I don't in any way relate to that which is now called the left. You with me? There's a, and it's the same with Christina Hoff Sommers. It's like she's saying, okay, I've got these views and I formulated the core of these views 30 years ago, and the people who retain the label who've come along since have moved that totally away from anything I can agree with.
Mm.
And then the question is who gets the right to own the label? Does it matter what the label is?
And I'm sorry to hear that you think you're too old, Amy. I don't know your age, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. But I am also sorry that this is the society that we have created. And in all fairness, the only reason we have a kid is because my wife wanted it too. But
there's some of us who view feminists as the worst misogynists of them all. The people who infantilize women.
And in all fairness, if I look at the way our society has basically raised boys, it's not just women that are being told that not to have children is a good thing. Men are basically being told the bloody same thing. And in retrospect, I'm sorry that I fell for it. But I did.
It seemed like a natural progression for me for some reason. Like started in the teens like, fuck no, children, get the hell out of here. And now I'm kind of like, yeah, if I could get a relationship and all that going, and yeah, why not?
Dude, I was 30 when I still had the fuck children idea.
Yeah, well,
really? I was like 25, 6-ish.
That's what I'm saying. You're ahead of me.
Can I just say I've never wanted to fuck children, and I never will.
Maybe it's a good thing you're not so famous now, Modwain.
Yeah, that's.
You'd have news articles going like, "Oh my God, John the Bemused, the only sane one in this conversation."
God, that's a sad statement. If I'm
or gonna turn out to Ben called Sargon. He wouldn't even do that to children. So you're saying that you're gonna do that to children, right? No. What?
Anywho, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Amy, and you don't know what life will bring you still. But yeah, we have been cheated, and our society has basically been turned against us, if I can call it like that. It's we've been indoctrinated to think certain things are good and certain things are bad, whilst at the same time deny our biological reality. And this will harm us, and it has harmed us. And this is why we have such a problem with enough children. I mean, imagine this. Our media keeps telling us that we shouldn't have children because, it's so bad for the environment. And now they tell us that we should import people from other countries because we don't have enough people living here. It's, yeah. Anyway.
Each day we stray further.
Yeah. And I think last year I read somewhere that in the Netherlands they are thinking about changing marriage laws so that now when you're married and you get divorced again, basically everyone reverts back to where they were from. So there is no... I forgot the names for it, yeah.
That doesn't sound that bad.
Sorry?
It's like having a good prenuptial agreement.
Yeah. But in the end, they didn't follow through on that. And I'm like, this is the one thing that is causing people to be reluctant to marry.
Well, there's a lot said that the whole shift to much larger proportions of society into higher education is delaying their emergence from adolescence. And that is going to have a massive impact on the age people and families. You know, when people were leaving school at 15, which, you know, when I was born, people still did leave school at 15. You know, they'd been at work for 5 years by the time they turned 20.
Yeah.
That's a long time. And now, half the population is still is barely halfway through their higher education at the age of 20.
Dude, about the biological reality stuff, I've heard stories that seem to suggest that once upon a time we were so in tune with our bodies, we could pretty much say, well, I've had a pretty good life, but kind of feel that this week's going to be the week I die.
Yeah, I mean...
been a good life, you know.
It's fun while it lasted.
A little bit of hunting, a little bit of gathering, a little bit of fucking, made some babies.
Had a good
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
got to teach my grandkids.
Artificial light has messed up our lives. Because they used to have this... I don't know a lot about it, but I've heard it explained that people used to sleep very differently. They used to have a long sleep and a short sleep. So they'd go to bed and then they'd wake up in the middle of the night, get up for a couple of hours, and then they go back to bed. Yeah. And this is the natural way people would sleep. And of course now we have artificial light, so people stay up later, have one sleep, and then get up and go to work. Well, I know for myself, that has never been easy. I've always struggled with that cycle.
If I have nothing to do, I kind of naturally revert to a night rhythm.
Yeah, me too. But
anyway,
it's weird because I can't work in the night. It drives me fucking nuts.
I just like the quiet.
Yeah,
because my neighbors aren't noisy like they are in the day.
It's like when it comes to jobs, I'd rather have like a 9 to 5, but if I don't have nothing to do,
I hate
it suddenly becomes like fucking daylight before I go to bed, you know.
I hate 9 to 5. Horrible hours.
Well, I'd rather do a 10 to 6 or 11 to 7, or, you know.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, considering the time, normally we go on for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like 10 more minutes, but We've been reverting back into bashing feminism.
No, critiquing.
Critiquing, fair enough. Yeah, sure.
And I mean, this is again one of the things I'm coming to think about ideology is this, right? So, feminism is an ideology. Doesn't mean that every feminist is an ideologue, just as Christianity or Islam, their ideologies, doesn't mean that everyone who's a Christian is an ideologue. But there was a time when, in Christianity, when, you had to be a Christian.
Mm.
And some people were very devout. And then we ended up with things like the Puritans and England under Oliver Cromwell, where there was no music, there was no theatre, there was no dancing.
Very boring.
Yeah, and it was very boring. And the people basically overthrew that when he died and invited the king back, having chopped the head off his father.
Good night, whoops.
But people liking people can share the fundamental views of something and not be ideological about it. Or people can treat it as an ideology, as a truth, as a fundamental basis on which everything is viewed. The whole Anita Sarkeesian quote.
Oh man, it reminds me of an old co-worker of mine. He
which is
turned to religion all of a sudden, and there was no talking with him anymore.
Yeah, and so one of the fundamental problems is conflating what is the ideology with people who aren't ideologues but have a liking for it. Just as no one would go around accusing most Catholics of being like the Spanish Inquisition anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you could.
Well, it's very quick to point to when we talk about religious violence, and it's like, but the Christians this, Christians that.
Well, no, I mean the point is it's conflating the underlying views with the ideological possession, so to speak. One can think, it's like, well, Marxism is just about equality. Yeah, but when you want to destroy the bourgeoisie, sometimes literally, that's not a nice thing to want to do. But if you just want everyone to be able to participate equally in society, well, you get lumped in the same general political group, but you've not got the same views. You with me? It's like, and so when and the problem with the term like feminism is you'll get somebody who says, well, I'm a feminist, and they're what are sometimes called coffee shop feminists because they believe in equality and they just want everything to be fair. And because there's so much propaganda about how unfair things are, which is misleading or false or distorted or only tells half the story, they want to push for things which just actually make things worse. Whereas you've got your full-blown ideologues who are female supremacists who just want to become the new elite.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, typos.
Yeah, and I have a problem spelling ostracized. So there we go. That should be better.
That analogy, I was saying that no one would call a Catholic now as being like the old Spanish Inquisition.
Of course.
My whole point. But there aren't any inquisitions anymore is my point.
The funny thing is that a lot of people hate the Spanish Inquisition, but they kind of forgot why the Spanish Inquisition was ever a thing.
You could tell me because I don't know.
Well, everyone remembers how the Spanish Inquisition killed non-Christians, or not the right sort of Christians. But they started because Spain had fought itself free from Moorish and Islamic conquest, and Christians under Islam in Spain were dhimmis, second-class citizens. They had a really terrible time, and they were killed, a lot of them, for having the wrong idea. And that's how the Spanish Inquisition came to be, to kill all of them that weren't good Christians, basically doing the same thing, but only in the other direction. So, yeah, there is that. And yeah, this is something we've seen in history repeating itself a lot. I mean, if we look at
but I thought it was between you and your God if you were a good Christian or not.
well, but it's not about religion. It's about populist control. So if we look at Spain and the Inquisition, and it was very much against the Moors and the Jews. But if we then look throughout different periods in time, the latest one obviously being the fascists in Italy. The fascists in Italy under Mussolini killed a lot of left-wing politicians and media. But before Mussolini and the fascists came into power, they were the ones being killed. We see the same thing happening in America now, where people are actually attacking people for wearing MAGA hats, or Sargon of Akkad or Tommy Robinson being attacked not only by milkshakes, but Tommy Robinson actually had Muslims throwing stones at him.
Just another day for Tommy, right?
Just another day for the Muslims.
But the thing is, stuff like this will eventually have a response. If governments don't pick up on this and handle this good, it will have an equal and opposite response.
And that's where I still like the message from my little video that I made. That is going to ignite something that we'll not be able to fix for a long time.
Yeah.
There's this spark of hatred forming to change all that, you know.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. We're running.
Actually, it's from Nagato's speech in Nagato.
I know. But in a way, we are running towards that turnaround. And I so wish we could prevent that from happening.
I saw this one thing once that made a lot of sense to me, just because of history and how humans are and stuff. It said, whenever humans are faced with the two choices, the easy route or crisis, humans always go, crisis sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, hey, let's not do crisis for this once, you know, let's just go the easy route. No, crisis.
Well,
I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think crisis is as good a word as any, to be honest. But yeah, we have plenty.
Idea.
It's not a good idea, but we have plenty to worry about, to be honest.
It's not a good idea, but don't you agree? If you look at human history, that's kind of what we always ended up with, and shit started anew again.
And Amy, men are not waiting for supermodels. Hell, most men don't really care about your looks. They care about your confidence.
Yeah.
Just give me a hug already, man.
Anywho.
Give me a good hug and a nice personality and something somewhat to look at. You know, I'm good.
Amy, this might sound silly, but it's better to meet a man in the library than to meet a man in a pub.
Oh, yeah. You might have a chance that you're not actually meeting his persona.
Yeah. So that's that.
The problem is that the media fiction present an ideal of what men should be, And Gad Sad, for instance, has done a study of romantic fiction from cultures all around the world, and they have an incredibly homogenous romantic hero. Super rich, super handsome, super this, super that. Okay? And so young women are sold this false ideal, whereas most men don't have a false ideal. But the women, the men, that 20% who the women go for, they're the ones who want the supermodel. And it's this inequitable distribution again. Whereas most men just want someone to get along with and be a partner in life. Not all, of course. Some men are broken, just as some women are broken. But that is, they're the ones, the broken ones are the ones all the publicity gets is about.
Yeah, the loud minority.
Well, not necessarily the loud minority, but also the abusers and the dysfunctional. They're the ones people notice. Don't notice the vast majority of people who just get on with their lives, muddling through the best they can.
I've heard that about drugs before. That
Anyway,
the majority of what we see is a negative shit. Well, there's way too many people functioning normally on doing heroin once every once in a while. But we only see the junkie on the street.
I am going to call it quits now because old man and all that. Smokers,
What?
any famous last words for tonight?
No. Sorry.
John?
Sorry, can I just address something Amy said? She said, no one should be telling you what you wanted or didn't want, Amy. If someone tries to tell you what your opinion is, tell them to go swivel on something very painful, because each of us should be free to decide for ourselves what we want. And maybe we didn't get what we wanted, maybe we do. But it's not for anyone else to tell you what you wanted or not.
No.
And Modwain wants me to shut up so he can go to sleep.
Yeah, well, old man is going to sleep. Anyway, Amy, welcome to the stream. I hope to see you next time. And I do feel sorry for you.
But not too sorry, because we don't do that.
No, yeah, that is true. And I don't know what your age is, so you never know what the world may still bring us. And I see two names that I've also never seen before, Tower on Power and Close the Door. Was it? Close the Door now, yeah. They're going to both vote Brexit. By all means, go ahead. I'm all in favor for everyone voting for whomever they vote. I sincerely worried that it's useless anyway. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it's all an illusion voting. Just remember that.
Yeah, unfortunately. And Amy, as John said, not too sorry. We hope to see you back next time. Everyone, as always, is more than welcome to join. Anitak, thanks for coming. Real Raven, Ludicrous already left. Are you 41? Well, I'm a little bit older than that, Amy. So, and I became a father. Let's say 3 and a half.
I gotta go.
Oh,
see y'all later.
Good night.
Yeah, see you. I'm going to hang up because otherwise I'm going to start all over again. Anyway, people, thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you all next time.